And there's a paradox in this one too. And that is that in order to live fully free, to just live the biggest life that we can live, we have to be willing to suffer. Now, I know that probably doesn't sound like fun, but perhaps the goal, if there is one, is to get deeply attached, knowing you will suffer, and then embrace the suffering. This lesson presents another paradox of freedom. I think that's the thing, maybe the one takeaway for me on this series of lessons on freedom. When I started digging into it, I just had a few thoughts. I was putting them in some notes. I was kind of expanding as I had more thoughts. Those notes kept expanding. What I did not see coming is how many paradoxes of freedom there are. And probably the majority of the lessons that we've already gone through had some significant paradox. And there's a paradox in this one too. And that is that in order to live fully free, to just live the biggest life that we can live, we have to be willing to suffer. Now, I know that probably doesn't sound like fun. Most of us probably don't like to suffer. I personally don't like to suffer. I was having a conversation with my mother. It was just a month or two ago, and she just turned 90. And she had a stroke 5 years ago. So she doesn't talk a lot because she can't find words when she looks for them. But I mean, she'll talk, but just often in very short sentences or one word. And I was chatting, but her mind's still sharp. So she understands everything, remembers everything. And I mentioned to her that, I never did like pain as a child. And she nods her head and goes, "No, you didn't like pain." And I go, "Oh, that's right. You were my mother. You were there. You probably remember me going to the doctor or the dentist and having all kinds of fear and anxiety." So I've never liked fear. I've never liked pain. And I think that makes me pretty normal, right? I've actually, for my adult life, really worked at getting comfortable with pain and getting comfortable with things that might cause pain. And that's allowed me to get tattoos and have surgeries and give blood and stuff like that, it's been liberating to be able to do those things. We're human. We don't like getting hurt. I've heard that emotional pain is every bit as painful and debilitating as physical pain. It feels like physical pain. So, of course, when we've gotten hurt, because we all have, of course, we thought to ourselves, I don't want to ever feel that again. I don't want to ever let that happen again. And so we put up walls, we built defenses, we kept people at a distance, we numbed ourselves out, we medicated, we avoided. So it sounds like we're all in the same boat because we don't like to suffer. Now, suffering, as we might guess, does serve a purpose. It teaches us, it's meant to get our attention. It's meant to teach us how to avoid places or people or actions that cause us pain, right? It's meant to make a mark on us. Now, bottom line, life is suffering. I mean, we don't have to go far to find philosophers, experts to teach us that. I mean, all the people I'm going to mention, you've heard me mention before. M. Scott Peck wrote a book called The Road Less Traveled. If you've not read it, do read it. It is the best-selling self-help book of all time for a reason. I think James Clear's Atomic Habits is on pace to surpass it, right? So if you've heard of James Clear and Atomic Habits, that tells you how good a book The Road Less Traveled is. But Scott Peck begins the book by saying life is difficult. This is a great truth. This is the greatest truth because once we accept that life is difficult, life ceases to be difficult, right? Once we could trying to get life to not be difficult for us, we can just open and accept. Okay, life's difficult. What's required of me? David Goggins talks about life is painful, right? That's his view of the world. Everything's about conquering pain and overcoming pain. You've heard me quote David Snarch. In every relationship, somebody's going to get left. That's the impermanence of life. We're all going to get hurt. if we get in a relationship or if we love. And then of course, you've heard me talk about the Buddha and attachment and suffering. And how I've always interpreted what the Buddha taught about attachment and suffering is that suffering is the human condition because attachment is the human condition. And I've always taught that if we can use our suffering to show us what we're attached to, then we could work and maybe letting go of attachments, or at the very best, or maybe say very best, it's quite challenging, become outcome agnostic or get equally okay with every possible outcome. So that's the way I've kind of been teaching about the Buddha's message about attachment and suffering. But I had an aha, a realization, a thought, maybe 3 weeks ago. And I don't even remember the context. I don't even remember what hit me. But it hit me that maybe I got it wrong. Maybe that how I interpreted the Buddha's teaching about suffering, that if you want to eliminate suffering, you eliminate attachments. I tell the story about, the farmer and his cows, and the Buddha saying, be grateful you don't have any cows. Basically, be grateful you're not attached to anything, then you won't suffer. And I'm wondering if even maybe I got it at least partly wrong. Now, do I dare say this? Could it be even that the Buddha got it wrong? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me on that. But here is the aha that hit me just a couple of weeks ago. Maybe the goal of life isn't to let go of all attachment to avoid suffering, become equally okay with every possible outcome, not have any emotionalized attachment to any specific outcome as I teach it. But perhaps the goal, if there is one, is to get deeply attached, knowing you will suffer, and then embrace the suffering. Maybe life is suffering. So what if? Because I've been playing with this idea for 2 to 3 weeks. Now we've had interviews the last 2 weeks. I've been dying to teach this lesson, just because is something really new to me, and I want to share it with you. And I'm going to love to get your feedback. But maybe we're here to get attached, to get deeply attached. Maybe we're here to love fully and deeply and get our hearts broken. You've heard me teach that for a couple of years now. Maybe we should be fully open to our attachments, not trying to get rid of them. Now, in a minute, I'm going to talk about a kind of attachment that's going to lead to maybe unnecessary suffering. But maybe we're here to give everything a big yes and then welcome and dance with the suffering that comes, to have a very conscious attitude towards attachment and suffering, a willingness to get your heart broken, because that allows you to live. It gives you freedom. It gives you freedom to risk, to be vulnerable, to go all in, to love and be loved without holding back and no reservation. Because like you've heard me say, if something is so good that it could break our heart, make us suffer, right? Then isn't it something we would not have wanted to have missed? If something is so damn good that losing it, it going away, it leaving us, if it's that good that it breaks our heart, I don't know about you, but I don't want to miss that, because I love that kind of good stuff. Now, we're all going to suffer. I've had to deal with the reality, and we've all had losses. We will put that in the chat box. My mother just turned 90. Odds are she's going to die before me. Yeah, I don't know that for a fact. You know, uh, my father, my sister, and my brother all died within 11 months of each other back in 2009, 2010. I almost died about 8 years ago. So I think my mother was thinking she's going to see another child die before she did. I mean, what a painful thing to have a child die, to have two of your children die, right? To have maybe a third one. So, but I'm going probably when my mother passes, I'm already prepared. That might be the greatest grief that I've dealt with in my life. My father, when he died, I was really at peace with my father. Didn't have a deep connection with him, but I was really at peace with it. I was at peace with my sister. I was at peace with my brother. I've not really had any other close relationships die so far. I mean, one or two here and there, but not many, considering I'm almost 70 years old. So I figure if I live a long life, if I live another 20 years, 25 years, even 30 years maybe, I've got grandparents that live that long. I'm probably going to experience a lot of loss, and I think my mother is going to be a pretty big one. Right? I didn't talk to my mother for 15 years, but we patched that up, and we're close. And that's going to hurt. If Lupita were to die, she had really severe pneumonia about a month ago. She went to Colombia, a dance event, and it was cold, it was wet. She got a cough. By the time she got back, and I was in Northern California at a men's event, and she's on a phone on a Tuesday night. I just arrived there in my RV, and she's crying over FaceTime saying, I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want to die. I'm afraid I'm never going to see you again. I'm crying thinking I might cannot get from where I was at to Puerto Vallarta before she might die of pneumonia. And I'm so grateful. I mean, to a doctor friend of ours that helped pull her through. But man, I went to sleep that night not knowing if I'd ever see my wife again alive. I mean, I'm choking up just even talking about it, and she pulled through. If my son, who's going to be 40 next week, were to pass, if my granddaughter, who's 18, just graduated high school, if they were to die before me, I will be devastated. If Nala, she's lying here at my feet, if she dies before me, um, I'll be devastated. I mean, I've got pictures of her on my screensavers on my computer. So, if she dies, when she dies, I'll probably leave them up there because, because I love her so much. I don't want that memory to go away. I'm willing to suffer. So you experience the fullness of life by getting fully attached, knowing you will suffer as a result. And so the only question is, can you get okay with that? Can you get okay with that? Now, again, we don't like to suffer. We don't like to be pain. But we've all suffered. We've all had pain. We already put it in the chat box. We survived it, right? We lived through it. You've probably heard me say every one of my previous wives, most of my previous girlfriends, there's a reason why I'm not, there's a reason why they're exes, right? They caused me more pain than happiness. Now, Lapita, I think she pretty much balanced the scales out in her favor, that I think she's brought me more happiness than pain. But she's brought me her share of pain as well. And again, if she were to die, I know it'll leave a big hole in my life. Right? So girlfriends have hurt me. Guy friends have hurt me. Building Integration Nation has caused me to suffer. It's been painful. It's woken me up countless times at 4:30 in the morning, struggling with, do I go this way? Do I make this decision? Do I do this? It's been an act of love, and it's caused me to suffer. And you know what? I would not change a thing. I would still marry the women I married. I would still date the women I dated. I would still have the friends I've had. I would still build Integration Nation again, even in spite of the suffering that I've been through. I'm glad I've done all these things, right? What's the alternative? Nothingness? A boring life? Playing World of Warcraft? I don't know. Where's the good stories to tell if you've never gotten your heart broken, right? How can we relate to the rest of mankind if we've never had our heart broken? If we've never suffered and cried gut-wrenching tears? How can we connect with the rest of the world? So trying to guard yourself from getting attached won't spare you from heartbreak and suffering. And, trying not to suffer seems like an attachment in itself. Trying not to be attached sounds like an attachment in itself. So you might as well go all the way in, be willing to get hurt, because we cannot live fully free if we're not willing to suffer deeply. Now think about this, it's everyday life stuff. You can't walk up and talk to a pretty girl unless you're willing to suffer rejection. You can't go for the kiss. You're not willing to suffer getting a cheek turned your way. Right? You can't launch your dream project if you're not willing to suffer and fail. You can't love your partner, a parent, a loved one, a child, your best friend, if you're not willing to lose them and suffer. You can't be free if you're not willing to risk it all. Go all in. Heart wide open, arms wide open, saying yes. Capital letters, Y-E-S, yes. Bring it. So we've got a choice. We can renounce all things and all attachments and live small, trying to avoid suffering, but I suspect we'll probably still bump into a few things that make us suffer along the way. Or why don't we just go big, all in, and learn to suffer well? There's the freedom. If we can learn to suffer well, there's the freedom. So how do we do that? Now, I can't say I'm an expert, but I've got some thoughts, right? And then we're going to let you guys chat about these in the breakout rooms. So just some thoughts. I guess three thoughts about how do we suffer well so that we can embrace our attachments, so we can love fully, so we can open, so we can get our hearts broken. One is to ask yourself, if you're suffering, if you're in pain, is it the result of an emotionalized attachment to a specific outcome that you have no control over? Another way of putting it, I saw a quote years ago. I was, in fact, I was talking about this woman today to a client because I was talking to a client whom I've worked with for at least a couple of years, and about his head over heels in love with a woman who isn't head over heels in love with him, who he's wanted to date for years, who doesn't want to date him, but yet who she keeps putting these little hooks out to get his attention. And I dated a woman for about 4 years who couldn't get all the way out of a relationship she was in with an abusive partner, on and off again for 4 years. She kept going back and forth. She'd be in, she'd be out, and just on and on. And I came across a quote. You probably have heard me share it before. And that quote is, "Hope keeps all suffering in place." Now, there's a good hope. There's a good hope that if something's trending in a certain direction, if there's signs that you can hope that, okay, it's going to work out that way. You know, but I'm a baseball fan, and I know Charles is on the call. He's a Giants fan, and I'm a Mariners fan. And they've made the playoffs once in the last 20 something years, right? Missed it by one game last year. All right. This year they're tied for the third wild card spot in the American League. They're, I think, five games out of first behind Houston, who's just been their nemesis. And they picked up the best hitting first baseman for the trade deadline, the best hitting third baseman, who's hit 36 home runs already, a new reliever, and it's like hope. Maybe they'll make the playoffs. Well, okay, there is a hope there that it could happen, right? They've made good moves, so there's some hope there, right? Maybe baseball's a trivial example. But you know what? I dated that woman who I kept hoping she would leave her partner and get all in with me. And when I came across that quote, "Hope keeps all suffering in place," I wrote it out, put it on my refrigerator, and one day after I'd closed and locked the door. I knew I'm not gonna give her my heart anymore. I wasn't gonna be Charlie Brown running up and kicking the football and having Lucy pull it back one more time. That had happened enough times. And she came over and said, "Hey, I'm in town. You want to get a coffee?" She came over to my place, saw that quote on my refrigerator, said, "Hope keeps all suffering in place. What does that mean?" And I said, "That's you and me. That's you." And she didn't even ask any more questions. She got it. Right? My hope kept hoping she would get all in with me. When I came to the realization she wasn't capable of it, that's when I let go of hope. And that's when I quit suffering. Okay. So I was talking with a client about that today. Same story. He's still hoping, still got a hope, and he's still suffering. Okay. That kind of hope, that's the kind of attachment I think Buddha was talking about, that those kind of attachments keep us in a state of unnecessary suffering. So in suffering well, Do back up and pay attention. Do you have an emotionalized attachment to a specific outcome of something, especially that's out of your control? And maybe that's to me one of the beauties of being a baseball fan is it is out of my control. I have to learn to enjoy it, knowing it's going to continually disappoint me. Okay. So it's a practice. It's a practice of letting go of what we can't control and letting go of the hope that keeps all suffering in place. Okay. Second suggestion about how to suffer well. When we're in emotional pain, and again, emotional pain is painful. It does truly hurt. It hurts in our body. It can devastate us. It can physically disable us. Thinking generally it doesn't kill us, but it can feel like it's going to. Two suggestions when we're in that kind of pain. One, don't let your mind make it worse. Don't let your mind make it worse. If our body, our heart is in pain, if we're shedding tears, have the tears. I don't know about you, but there's something truly cathartic about just weeping. Hearing a love song. I was listening to an audiobook lying here on my couch Saturday where a woman talked about being attacked by a shark and when she's 13 years old and how it was trying to kill her. And then how once she finally got out of the water, her parents took her to the doctor, got a stitch in her, and all she's saying, all night long, I'm in pain, I'm burning up, I can't breathe. Her parents just kept saying, go to sleep, quit hyperventilating, quit overreacting, you'll be okay. Doctor said you'd be fine. I was sobbing listening to that story. Somehow I related to it deeply. I've never been attacked by a shark, but I've been neglected by parents, right? Something about it just cut to my core. But you know what? It felt really good to just sob and just sob. And when I was done sobbing Saturday morning, I didn't feel so bad. I felt lighter. I felt really kind of open and cleaned, right? Like gotten clean from the inside out. So I don't think the actual grief and suffering, the tears, I actually don't think that's so bad. What fucks with us is when our brain gets involved. Like this client I was talking to today, he's still trying to analyze what are the moving parts of why she can't get all the way in with him, and what is it about him that is not good enough for her. And he's been doing this for years. Right? The guy's good looking, owns his own company, he's worth millions, he's got everything going for him, but his brain is creating the suffering, not the fact that this woman doesn't want to be in a relationship with him. So notice. Is your brain replaying the past? Is your brain trying to figure out where you fucked up? Is your brain trying to figure out how to get them back? Is your brain trying to figure out what you did wrong? Is your brain rehashing? Yeah, don't let your brain make you suffer because that's the kind of suffering, that's that unnecessary suffering. If your heart is broken, let it out. Feel the grief. Let it out. Don't do it alone. Let somebody be there for it, but don't let your brain mess with you. The second thing is don't medicate away the feelings. Let them out. Have your grief. Feel the depth of it. Don't stay busy. Don't drink them away. Don't porn them away. Don't sex them away. Don't gamble them away. Don't codependent them away. Don't eject from your feelings. Have them. They won't kill you. Having a good cry won't kill you. Missing a loved one general won't kill you. I do know, I've heard stories of, people that died and then their partner died within hours. So it does happen. Maybe because they could not go all the way into and feel the grief. Now, I'm not trying to be preachy here or say do it this way or don't, but welcome, open arm, the grief, the sadness, the suffering. It will pass. This too will surely pass. Everything that broke our hearts in the past probably is come and gone, right? It's come and gone. So be willing to open to it rather than medicate it away. And then my third suggestion. If loving someone or something feels scary to you, I mean, if you're scared, like if you're scared to really open up to your wife, to a family member, to your best friend, if you're afraid to get out into the dating scene because you're afraid of getting hurt, if you feel the fear, if you notice your reservation, if you feel yourself holding back, can you make a decision to open more fully and open your heart, let down your defenses, take a risk, and welcome the eventual suffering that you know will come? Can you make that kind of decision? Think about the freedom that comes from that. The freedom that says, I'm willing to get hurt. I'm willing to have my heart broken. I'm willing to take the big risk. And I'm willing to experience the things that are so damn good, I would not have wanted to have missed them. When you're wanting to close, can you open more fully? I have to laugh because you guys have all heard the stories about my jealous Latino wife. And we haven't been through this in quite some time. But in the past, we'd be out somewhere and she'd pull away from me. She'd get kind of rigid. She'd kind of turn away. And I go, okay, what now? And I said, what? Nothing. And I said, no, nada, nada, no, nada's nunca nada. What? That woman is flirting with you, or you were checking out that woman's butt, and she'd pull away from me, and and so over time, I'd talk with her. I said, listen, why does it hurt you when you think some woman flirted with me, or you think I'm looking at a woman's butt? Does it hurt you because you feel the loss of connection with me? Is that what hurts? And I said, if what you're feeling is a loss of connection and what you most crave is a depth of connection, I said, it doesn't make any sense to me that when you've experienced what you perceive to be a loss of connection, that you pull further away from me. That doesn't make sense. That's what's hurting you in the first place, is you think we're not connected and you move further away. That doesn't make sense. I'm being rational here, right? I'm being a guy here, right? And I said, how about when you think you've lost the connection with me, how about you actually move closer to me? You lean into me. You take my hand. You give me a kiss on the cheek. You say, hey, I'm here. Notice me. She goes, I know. It's just hard to do. Yeah, it is. It's hard to do, right? When we feel that distance, we feel like somebody might be on their way out, we might getting left. We want to guard and protect ourselves. But if what we're really afraid of is the loss of connection, doesn't it make more sense to open even deeper? I'm not talking about chase or pursue somebody who doesn't want to be with you. I already talked about that for an hour with a guy today, chasing a woman who doesn't want to be with him. I'm not advocating that, but it's a loved one, someone you know who cares about you. When you feel afraid, can you open more? Can you open more? Knowing that it might hurt more. And can you develop gratitude around that? Knowing again that it's so good, you don't want to miss it. Can you cry the tears of gratitude? Can you go back for even more? Can you get lots of good tear-jerking stories to tell? Can you let you cry at love songs? Can you write some great love songs, some great poetries, a great novel? Can you be there for somebody else when they're going through a heartbreak? Because you've been there. Can you be the arm around their shoulder? Can you cry with them in their moment of pain? If you've never embraced your own suffering, no, you can't. And again, most importantly, can you embrace the good stories that you get to tell when it's all said and done? Because like you've heard me say, he who dies with the most stories wins. All right, the only way to be truly free, as odd as it may sound, as paradoxical as it may sound, is to get fully attached, love deeply, open your heart, go all in, arms open, and embrace the suffering that will inevitably come. That's living. That's freedom.